Attached. The Federation contemplates allowing bickering children into its ranks, while a forced relationship between two main characters develops.
The Enterprise arrives at Kesprit 3 because some of the inhabitants have requested associate membership in the Federation, whatever that means.
Picard is eating breakfast with Beverly, and she's talking about the relationships between her medical staff, but Picard isn't listening, and neither was I. Picard is worried that only half of the planet wants to be part of the Federation because that's never happened before. But when Beverly makes an Earth analogy, Picard is super quick to dismiss it before she can even finish her sentence.
For once, Beverly was being the rational one, and Picard's feelings were exaggeratedly nonsensical. Picard and Beverly beam out to meet Ambassador Morik, and for some reason, Worf is the one manning the transporter, probably because the scene required dialogue, and he gets a message from the Kess, the group of people that want to join the Federation, saying that they are still waiting for Picard and Beverly to beam in.
Picard and Beverly wake up in what appears to be one of my kids' rooms, and Beverly discovers that they both have matrix jacks on the back of their necks.
Some aliens come in telling them that they are being held by the Prit, who are the people that don't want to join the Federation, and they believe that they are conspiring to form a military alliance with the Kess, who are their enemies.
And their implants will soon let them extract all the information they need. And Picard says, good, then you'll know that we're telling the truth. And this whole episode could have been solved if they had just waited, because then they would have extracted the information and seen that they were telling the truth.
Data and Worf examine the transporter, and they find that a tractor beam from the Prit intercepted the transporter signal. Riker says he'll have to talk to Ambassador Morik of the Kess because the Prit refuse all interaction.
Back in the cell, Picard tells Beverly that the key thing is to think positively in every situation, as he's desperately trying to squeeze his body through a 5-centimeter hole.
And he accuses Beverly of staring at him, which was a little bit weird. Food is brought to them, and Picard very clumsily tries to escape, and very clumsily fails.
Yeah, I would have loved to have seen, if he actually got out, the guard would have just been like, alright, I'm gonna shoot you now, or put you back in the cell.
Beverly finds her tricorder hidden with the food, and she finds that a map of the facility has been added. So she uses the tricorder to open the door, and apparently there's no guards anywhere, and they just walk out.
But again, if they had just waited and let the Matrix jacks do what they were supposed to do, the situation would have resolved itself.
But it's still true that they got kidnapped by hostile aliens.
You're not thinking very positively right now.
I mean, if Picard had just squeezed through that opening, they could have been gone a long time ago.
True. Back on the Enterprise, Ambassador Morik apologizes for what's happened and says they're prepared to drop soldiers right away. When Riker says they want to try a diplomatic solution first, Morik can't possibly understand why.
The Prit are fanatical, xenophobic people with little regard for civilized discourse.
When Troy asks how long it's been since the Kess have tried to communicate with the Prit, Morik says 100 years. 100 years since you've tried to talk to these people and just assume that everything is the same. Can you imagine if we talked to a group of people from 100 years ago and expected things to be the same?
Well, I will say that these are aliens, and maybe they live a long time, and for them it's not that long, I don't know. Morik says that the Prit seem to have intercepted the Enterprise signal through a breach of the Kess communication network, so he wants to stay aboard the Enterprise. From everything that Morik said about the Prit, and how Riker said that they can't blame the Kess at all for what happened, I was guessing that either the Kess, or at least Morik specifically, was really behind everything that was going on with Picard and Beverly.
The old Romulan spy tactic. Back on the planet, Picard and Beverly make their way to some caves and a Resident Evil puzzle of shooting flame columns, including a final QuickTime event.
And right before they run through, we get this weird exchange.
What did you say?
I didn't say anything.
Data scans the Prit communication system and finds a way to directly hail their Prime Minister, but the Prime Minister says he will not participate in unauthorized communication.
And then the Prit security starts their own communication, but the message is still just as abrupt and curt.
Morik shows up saying that Picard and Beverly have escaped thanks to a Kess operative, and he says they have a map to the Kess border. And when Riker asks how they managed to do that, Morik refuses to discuss things anywhere other than his quarters.
Down on the planet, Beverly and Picard realize that they can hear each other's thoughts, likely due to their Matrix implants, which explains the weird exchange they had earlier.
They find a vertical passage up through some fake rocks, and Picard picks up Beverly's fear of heights and tells her to get over it.
In Morik's super secure room, full of a bunch of 1990s children's toys, which are there for security, apparently, he tells Riker that they have Prit spies who will be waiting for Picard and Beverly in a village that they control, and he hopes that the act of rescuing them will look favorable in their Federation bid. And at this point, when Riker expressed concern about Picard and Beverly being somewhere so public, and Morik said, "We control the entire village," I thought it would have been an interesting twist, considering they hadn't communicated in 100 years, that there wasn't actually a conflict anymore, and them thinking they control the whole village was actually because there wasn't actually any conflict. And then they could do a whole thing at the end where they'd say, well, if you had just talked to each other, communication is very important. You've got to think positively.
Honestly, that probably would have been more satisfying. When they get up to the surface, Picard yells at Beverly for thinking about vegetable soup and making him hungry. They talk about how many stray thoughts people have, and decide to spread out a bit to see if they can weaken their connection. But when they try to, they start feeling sick.
I thought it didn't really make much sense that they're fugitives following a very specific map, and Picard says, let's split up.
Yeah, on a planet that they don't know anything about. They decide to stay together, and they reach a point where there are 2 hills to go over, and Beverly doesn't know which one they should pick. So Picard takes a look and makes a decision. Beverly says that he doesn't really know which way to go, and he admits that's true and says there are times when a captain has to give the appearance of confidence.
They see a Prit on patrol and are forced to alter their course, meaning they're not going to show up at the rendezvous point as expected. And back on the ship, Morik summons Riker and Worf and tells him that Picard and Beverly didn't show up, and they find it very suspicious.
How could you know if your captain and doctor were meeting secretly with the Prit?
And eventually Riker is done with their weird paranoid conspiracies and tells them to get out.
Beverly and Picard make a campfire, but they fail to find anything to eat. Beverly starts talking about their breakfasts together and picks up a thought from Picard saying that he hates her breakfast selections. And then he finds out that she also hates elaborate breakfasts.
And I found it interesting that they were both so focused on their breakfast situation and not the howl of an alien wolf that sounded really, really close.
They start talking about how much they both love firelight. Beverly starts talking about going camping with Wesley and her deceased husband Jack, when she picks up a thought from Picard that he tries to suppress. And she asks why he never told her that he was in love with her. He says he never told her how he really felt because even after Jack died, he felt like he would have been betraying him.
So they were best friends?
That's what he said.
Oh, I guess it's good that we wait until season 7 to figure that out.
And he says that over the last 20 years, he gradually realized he didn't feel that way about her anymore, and now they're just friends.
Back on the ship, Riker contacts the Prit again, with Morik present, and the Prit shut him down again, so he forcibly beams the security minister aboard and demands that the 3 of them talk.
And each of them accuses the other of working with the Federation. Back on the planet, Picard and Beverly get shot at by some Prit, and Patrick Stewart gets to display his stunt skills.
While back up on the ship, Riker is fed up with the bickering and tells Morik that there is no way he's going to recommend the Kess for Federation membership.
It is the opinion of this officer that they are not ready for membership. A deeply troubled world. Social, political, military problems that they have yet to resolve.
And then he tells the security minister that if Picard and Beverly are not found, more Federation ships will arrive and start poking around. Back on the planet, Picard and Beverly get to the border where there's a force field, and they use the tricorder to try to get through. Beverly manages to open a conveniently human-sized hole in the field, I don't know how that works, and pushes Picard through right as the Prit security troops arrive.
But it doesn't really matter because they tell the security minister what's going on, and she says, alright, beam him up.
Riker talks to Picard and Beverly, telling them that Morik is still trying to get the Kess into the Federation, but he doesn't think they'll make it. And Picard and Beverly suddenly start laughing at each other and commenting on thoughts that Riker can't hear.
Later, the 2 of them have dinner, and they're happy that they're not in each other's head anymore, but they find that they miss it. And Picard says that now they know how the other feels, they shouldn't ignore those feelings.
He makes it clear that he wants to bang, and Beverly kisses him but says it wouldn't be the right thing to do. But when she leaves, she has a conflicted look on her face. We see Picard blowing out the candles in his room as he struggles not to cry.
Oh, man. Attached. Overall?
Finally, a decent episode for the season. A conflict between two factions on a planet is something we've seen a million times before, and this episode didn't do anything new with it, other than having both sides distrust the Enterprise. I'm glad that one side didn't turn out to be clearly better than the other, but for me, the far more interesting side was Picard and Beverly. I thought both characters were well written and well acted, which doesn't always happen, and we got some good character development out of both of them. I only wish they would keep those kind of developments in mind going forward. I liked how the resolution for both of them was open-ended, and it would be good to get some awkwardness or something between the two of them in the future, but I doubt that's going to happen.
I think that's one of the biggest flaws of these later seasons. They never follow up on anything, even if it's something shown to be very, very dramatic or important.
It makes me wonder if the network or somebody said, hey, we gotta have more episodes that people can kind of watch in any order for syndication.
But they didn't do that with earlier seasons.
Yeah, there was a lot more development early on. Probably the best stuff in the show. The part where they said they had no choice but to stick together because they would feel sick if they spread apart was completely pointless. It's not like they were going to split up completely anyway, so I don't know why they felt like they needed to stick that in.
That might have worked better if it was two characters who didn't like each other.
Yeah.
Kind of like a Wild Wild West type of thing. If we want to go the highbrow route.
My only real complaint about the Picard-Beverly side of things is that it felt like the B-plot until it took prominence closer to the end. If they had focused more on that than on Riker and the two warring sides, which was pretty generic, I think the episode could have been a lot better. Either that, or they could have made the conflict between the two sides more interesting. But I gave it a B-.
I gave this one a C-. The Kess's cartoonishly overly paranoid behavior was way too much, and was even more annoying tied to their overinflated sense of confidence about everything. Riker strong-arming his way into negotiations was pretty dumb, and neither of these groups was in the Federation, so he's forcing other people to do what he wants just because he's annoyed with them. Yes, they are childish and argumentative, but deciding after 10 minutes of them arguing that you're done was pretty stupid. This relationship that has purportedly existed between Picard and Beverly, to me, was not realistic. And the excuse for them revealing it to each other, being inside each other's brain, felt lazy and cheap. They could have said anything and used the excuse, it was buried so deep.
No, but Picard and Beverly have always had something between them, like from the beginning of the show.
Yeah, at the beginning, but then it just fizzled out. I haven't felt like they've had a solid connection like that for a long time.
You must have been skipping over all those sideways glances they always give each other.
I highly doubt that this relationship between them will continue. It seemed very much like a desperation move by the producers to generate something meaningful with established characters, but for me, it held little weight because of the fact that these are established characters. Picard has had more believable relationships with one-off side characters, but the fact that they're one-off side characters means that they can't continue showing up. It's being trapped between a rock and a hard place, and the answer is to really not do either of them at this point in the show. I thought this was a very forgettable episode.
And I thought it was the best one this season so far.
I would have liked to see more Resident Evil traps as they were escaping the planet.
Yeah, I forgot all about that part. That was like, oh crap, we need another scene to pad it out. Just stick something in the middle here.
Have some zombie dude pop out with a chain gun, speaking Spanish. Did they speak Spanish in 4?
Yeah.
I think that's a great way to end this one. Thanks for watching.